Stones thrown in rage, lives lost in the chaos, and claims of centuries old heritage. This is India today, grappling with the ghost of its past. In the eye of this storm are historical monuments like the Shahi Jama Masjid of Sambhal, alleged to have risen on the ruins of a Hindu temple, and of course the Ajmer Sharif Dargah, now embroiled in accusations of being a Shiv temple. But what connects these flashpoints of tension? A law that could hold the key to understanding these disputes. The Places of Worship Act of 1991. In Sambhal, tensions began with a petition claiming that the Shahi Jama Masjid, built by Babur's general Mir Hindu Beg, stood on the ruins of an ancient Harihar Mandir. A court-ordered survey soon followed, but it only led to violent protests, stone pelting, police retaliation, and 5 tragic deaths later, Sambhal found itself at the heart of yet another communal flashpoint. Simultaneously, the Ajmer Sharif Dargah, revered by millions, faces allegations of being a converted Shiv temple. These claims may seem sudden, but they do echo a larger pattern. These disputes aren't isolated incidents, they are part of a larger battle for historical narratives intertwined with politics, religion, and identity. To understand their implications, we need to revisit a law passed 3 decades ago, the Places of Worship Act of 1991. Rewinding back to the 1980s and the early 1990s, this was a tumultuous time for India. The Ram Janmabhoomi movement was at its peak. Communal violence was tearing communities apart. In this climate, the then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao's government passed the Places of Worship Act in 1991. Its goal? To freeze the status of religious places as they were on August 15, 1947, preventing any attempts to alter their character. Here's what this law mandates. Section 3 of said act strictly prohibits the conversion of any place of worship fully or partially into one of a different religion. The Section 4 states that religious character of a place as it stood on August 15, 1947 must be preserved, and no new lawsuits can be filed for conversion, and pending suits on such matters are to be dismissed. However, there was one exception, the Babri Masjid dispute, which was already under litigation when the act was passed. So on 6 December 1992, tens of thousands of Kar Sevaks swarmed the disputed site in Ayodhya. A 16th century mosque attributed to Babur's general Mir Baki stood there at the heart of a centuries-old controversy. For Hindu activists, this was no mosque. It was the birthplace of Lord Ram, desecrated by invaders centuries ago. But was this a spontaneous act of religious devotion? Many think otherwise. The Liberan Commission, set up to investigate, accused top leaders of orchestrating the demolition, calling it a pre-planned conspiracy. Leaders from the BJP like L.K. Advani, who was also the face of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, claimed that they were caught off guard, but eyewitness accounts and leaked tapes suggest otherwise. The claim of a temple beneath the Babri Masjid gained momentum in 1989, fueled by various political and religious narratives. Archaeologist B.B. Lal had conducted excavations in Ayodhya between 1975 and 1980, claiming to have discovered pillar bases that supported the idea of a pre-existing Hindu temple. However, his findings were published in an RSS-affiliated magazine and not in a peer-reviewed academic journal, raising concerns about the neutrality of such a report. So when the Allahabad High Court ordered fresh excavations in 2003, the Archaeological Survey of India took up the task. The ASI claimed to have uncovered 50 pillar bases which it used as evidence to support the temple theory. However, witnesses like archaeologists Supriya Verma and Jaya Menon observed significant irregularities. They alleged that the ASI's excavation methods were biased with a predetermined agenda to validate the temple theory. So what were these problems with the excavation? Of the 50 reported bases, only 10 appeared to be genuine structural remains characterized by square sandstone slabs with cavities to hold pillars. The rest, according to Verma and Menon, were just irregular heaps of brick, mud and stone, inconsistent with architectural norms. Observations during the excavation suggested that brick fragments were strategically left in place to resemble pillar bases. Such practices raised questions about the integrity of the excavation and its findings. Now, the witnesses also criticized the lack of stratigraphic documentation and the use of biased interpretation rather than any empirical evidence. These shortcomings undermined the excavation's credibility and demonstrated the subjectivity inherent with interpreting the fragmentary remains. This begs the question, can we really discover the past just by digging? Archaeology rarely offers a complete picture. Partial remains invite multiple interpretations, often shaped by contemporary agendas. The ASI's Ayodhya excavation appeared to favor validating the temple theory over impartial inquiry, showing that archaeology can be influenced. Without any corroboration from literary, epigraphical, or historical sources, physical evidence alone cannot narrate the past. Excavation uncovers clues, but understanding history requires empirical evidence, scholarly rigor, and objectivity. Years later, in 2019, the Supreme Court delivered a landmark judgment. While acknowledging the unlawful demolition of the mosque in 1992, the court handed over the land to Hindus for building a Ram temple. Muslims were allotted an alternative 5-acre plot for constructing a mosque. Yet, as the years have passed, this promised mosque in Dhanipur remains a distant dream. The land allocated for the mosque, far from the original site of the Babri Masjid, sits barren. Despite the Supreme Court's direction and the Muslim community's initial optimism, no significant steps have been taken to construct the mosque. Plans for a grand mosque in Dhanipur, including an Islamic cultural center, have been announced multiple times, but nothing tangible has been built yet. Meanwhile, the Bharatiya Janata Party has masterfully used the Ram Janmabhoomi issue to galvanize its political base. The construction of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya has become quite a central plank in the BJP's electoral campaign, stoking a Hindu nationalist sentiment. Since the 1980s, the party had already been linked to its Ram temple issue, portraying it as a fulfillment of a long-pending Hindu demand. While the Ram Mandir project has progressed with unprecedented speed and political backing, the promised mosque in Dhanipur remains stuck in limbo. The BJP's focus has remained on the Ram temple, with the promise of a mosque fading into the background. For many, this reflects a deeper reality. The BJP's use of the Ram Janmabhoomi issue as a tool for political consolidation rather than a genuine attempt at fostering religious harmony. The unanswered question remains, will the mosque ever be built in Dhanipur as promised, and will the Ram Janmabhoomi issue ever be put to rest, or will it continue to be used as a political weapon, fueling divisions rather than fostering a unity? In Varanasi, the Gyanvapi mosque stands beside the Kashi Vishwanath temple. Built in 1669 under Aurangzeb's orders, the mosque allegedly replaced an ancient Hindu temple. Over the years, lawsuits seeking to reclaim the site have been filed, despite the Places of Worship Act. Recent surveys even claim to have found a shivling within the mosque premises, sparking a fresh controversy. Centuries ago, the grand Vishweshwara temple dominated the landscape dedicated to Lord Shiva. This temple's glory attracted the wrath of conquerors. In the 12th century, it was said to have been destroyed by Qutbuddin Aibak, the general of Sultan Muhammad Ghori. Efforts to rebuild the temple were repeatedly thwarted in the 13th century when Princess Razia of the Delhi Sultanate decreed that a mosque be constructed on its ruins. Now, the Vishweshwara temple rose again in the 16th century under the patronage of Narayan Bhatt during Emperor Akbar's relatively tolerant reign. However, its sanctity was short-lived. In 1669, the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb ordered the temple's destruction, erecting the Gyanvapi mosque in its place. A peculiar sight persists even today: a statue of Nandi, Shiva's sacred bull, gazing towards the mosque, symbolizing a connection to the temple that might have stood there. Centuries later, the dispute simmered, gaining momentum again in 1984 when Hindu leaders convened to reclaim three sites of contention: Ayodhya, Mathura, and Kashi. The Gyanvapi mosque, alleged to rest atop the remnants of the Vishweshwara temple, became a focal point for religious fervor and political mobilization, echoing in slogans like Ayodhya to bas jhanki hai, Kashi Mathura abhi baki hai. As tensions mounted, the Indian Parliament passed the Places of Worship Special Provisions Act in 1991, forbidding the conversion of any religious site to preserve their post-independence identity. However, a petition was filed in the same year which sought to reclaim the Gyanvapi mosque for Hindu worship, sparking a prolonged legal battle that eventually landed in the Allahabad High Court. In 2019, the resolution of the Ayodhya title dispute reignited hope amongst petitioners seeking to survey the Gyanvapi mosque. A Varanasi court ordered archaeological investigations, triggering a chain of legal and political actions. In 2022, amidst heated protests and claims of discovering a shivling within the mosque, the Supreme Court intervened, trying to balance the rights of both Hindu and Muslim communities. Now, just 700 kilometers away in Mathura, the Shahi Idgah Mosque faces similar allegations. Petitioners claim it was built on the birthplace of Lord Krishna after Aurangzeb allegedly demolished a temple. Like Gyanvapi, this case also tests the limited of the act in question. Despite the act's provisions, courts have allowed surveys and hearings, fueling tensions over the years. Now, let's not mince words here. These disputes are as much about politics as they are about faith. The BJP, which spearheaded the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, has often been accused of using these religious issues for electoral gains. In fact, the act itself faced stiff opposition from BJP leaders when it was passed, which claimed that it denied Hindus their historical rights. But what's the cost? Each new controversy offers a different perspective, deepens communal divides, turning sacred sites into battlegrounds. Our sources tell us that the case concerning the validity of the Places of Worship Act was scheduled to be heard on 4th December but was removed from the court's agenda at the 11th minute. The Places of Worship Act isn't just a law, it's a pledge to protect India's pluralism. It recognizes that history is complex and often painful, but it insists that the wounds of past cannot justify conflicts in the present. By freezing the status of religious sites as they stood in 1947, the act seeks to uphold secularism and prevent communal violence. Imagine an India where every place of worship is a point of contention, where every historical grievance is a political weapon. That's not just chaos, it's the end of our unity. From the spires of Mathura to the ghats of Varanasi, India's diversity is its strength. The Places of Worship Act of 1991 reminds us that coexistence is not just a necessity, it's our identity. But as political forces seek to rewrite our narratives, the question remains, will we protect this legacy of unity, or will we let it crumble under the weight of division? What are your thoughts on this? Is the Places of Worship Act an essential safeguard, or does it stifle the truth of our history? Share your views in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more such deep dives into India's most pressing issues. Let's keep this conversation going, guys. Stay informed, stay united. Thanks for watching.